Congo, and I want us to take a look at what has quite recently happened. Just I think that was on Tuesday. It's a statement that was made by President Felix Tshisekedi, who now sort of gave a warning to the East African Community Regional Force. And what he says is this force will have to leave by June if they're not effective on the ground. In fact, he went on to accuse ACRAF of what he called cohabiting with rebels after the regional troops declined to enter combat. I want to understand now, with this situation in play at this point, and we'll come back to the SADC, which are now going to deploy their troops as well. Where does this leave the East African Community Regional Force? And is this, Dr. Nicodemus, a harsh assessment by the Congolese president?
Well, you might say it's a harsh assessment, but him directly saying that that ICRAF is cohabiting with the rebels, I think he should not be saying this as a head of state, and these are statements maybe he should make in private. But if you can recall that the ICRAF chief, that is Jeff Nyaga, was forced to resign amid serious allegations that, or this serious allegation of this magnitude that, and of course he cited threats to his life and other, of course, Felix Tshisekedi says that he should have actually said what these threats were. But I think for me, this statement from Felix Tshisekedi comes in the midst of a lot of confrontations between him and President Kagame, and of course his general assessment of what is, the 6 months that the ICRAF has had its deployment in the eastern part of DRC.
Right.
Of course, we know in March there was an extension for 3 months, an agreement of a 3 months extension until June. And now at this SADC summit, he goes ahead and says that come June, if this ICRAF is not forced to, because of course the original mandate of the ICRAF was actually just a peacekeeping mandate and not to actually engage in combat. And of course, now you see the SADC has actually agreed to send troops. And of course, now he says he's no more aligning with the southern part of DRC, of the continent, the SADC, because of the history of good relations with the South as opposed to the to the East Africa, which again raises a number of questions about DRC's inclusion into the East African community in the first place, because it just recently became the 7th member of the East African community, yet he is actually lambasting and criticizing the general view, which I think is a modest, and if you ask me, I think this is a plan by the East African community actually to stabilize the region. But here comes again, he tries to cite all these grievances. But I think, for me, I read more.
What do you think are the dynamics behind this particular situation now that, ICRAF has been there as part of the mission, trying to stabilize that particular part, part of the many other missions in DRC. But with such statements, then where does it leave, the East African community itself, in all the resources that have put to try and make the situation better in Congo?
Actually, it leaves it at a very precarious position. And for me, you ask about the dynamics. The Congo goes into an election in December, and I think these are some of the reasons as to why, of course, for me, in my own point of view, that Felix Tshisekedi is trying to whip some sort of emotions ahead of these elections. And of course, the general assessment could be maybe to do better in the next round of deployment. But for me, I just see some sort of behind-the-scenes, motives into such accusations. And why do you want to call the SADC mission now? Yet there's already another mission in the East African community. Maybe you just want to extend the mandate to include a combat mandate. But these are some of the questions which I think maybe even Prof could actually look at in terms of assessing the statement that is being made by the DRC president at this very particular juncture.
And that's a good place to ask